Okay, gap in the rings. Start with the cast iron second compression ring. They have a dot, and the sides you can see they're dull. Dip them in a combination of Lucas assembly oil and gear oil, and slide them in cylinder. Hard doing this with one hand. There we go. Then I use a piston to line it up in the cylinder bore. Drop it down to the oil ring level. Then I take my feeler gauge. Everything's nice and even, and I check it. I'm setting the gap on these to 1/1800ths of an inch. As you can see, second compression ring is gapped correctly. No filing needed on this one. Take it out. Careful you don't break it. Next, you get the top compression ring, which is a moly ring. You see how shiny the edge is? And dip it in the lube. Then cylinder, same cylinder. Now, you don't want to mix these up. Get the same piston and center that in the bore. Drop it down so the oil rings are seated. And check the gap. See how that is. Feeler gauge slides up and down easily. It's gapped right. If it snags, then you're going to have to file it a bit and then recheck it. So that's good. Already put together piston number 4. So sit there and sit there. Okay. Rings. We use a ring expander tool like this. A couple bucks, Leslie, K-line. Basically, set in between the gap, like that, on the ring, and squeeze and it'll expand it. Next, installing the rod bearings. There's different types of rod and main bearings. On stock steel cranks, there's no beef radius. It's pretty flat on the edges. So I'm using these here Federal Mogul bearings. When I clean the surfaces, use a little WD-40, wipe the bearings, clean the rod cap end, make sure everything's clean, free of any debris, and use a good assembly lube for the rod bearings. I'm using Lucas assembly lube as a high filled film. You want to make sure there's a barrier between the crank surface and the bearing. Prevent damage or premature wear. You notice there's a groove here on each end. One on the rod, one on the rod cap. And make sure those grooves both are on the same side. Otherwise, you'll damage your crankshaft. So when you bolt this up, make sure these two grooves are facing each other. Show you the groove one more time there. There you go. See that. Okay. Now we've got the number 4 piston rod assembled. Rings are on, bearings are on. We're going to dip the first 2 rings in a gear on Lucas assembly lube. Okay, now we laid the piston in the cylinder bore. We're going to lay the ring compressor over the piston and then tighten it up. Okay, now we got the ring compressor tightened up, and inside you can see the rings are compressed. Take a little hammer and just tap around it, make sure it's all settled down. Usually I use the back of a wooden hammer to tap the piston into its cylinder bore. Just go around lightly, tapping, tapping, tapping. Don't want to force it into place. And check outside, make sure you don't see any ring lands or anything. You don't want to break any of those. Okay, now we got the cylinder, the piston in the cylinder bore. Has a bit of way to go down, so just keep tapping down. As we're tapping down, we take a look, make sure the rod's going where it's supposed to. Okay, got another 2 inches to go. Make sure everything's still there. Half an inch. Okay, now I'm going to have to turn the camera off, and I need both my hands. Make sure I don't scratch or damage it. Okay, there we go. Rod bearing seated on the crank. Now I just got to put the rod cap on and torque it down to 50 pounds. Okay. Make sure you use ARP fastener assembly lubricant on these Scat Pack rods and all the bolts. Apply it onto the threads. This way you don't get any false torque readings, and everything's evenly torqued to 50 pounds. ARP rod bolt.